exercise, sleep, and nutrition. If you are not exercising adequately, and we can talk about what that means, and you are not sleeping well, let's just take those two. No amount of ice baths or cryotherapy is going to help you. No amount of supplements are going to help you. You can't out-supplement your way through bad sleep. So you need those two. They are the foundation to having the proper fuel in the bank. And if you get those right, that then gives you a seat at the table. That then gives you the ability to just be a normal functioning human in 2023. Look, I live in Manhattan. You need so much fuel to live in this city. It is just unbelievable how much energy you need.
Welcome to the Alpha Man Podcast, hosted by Stephen Goldstein and Mark Randall. The podcast which is always looking to help traders, whether they're new to the game or whether they are seasoned and experienced traders, explore how they can be better, more productive, more effective traders by looking at the human aspects of trading performance. Today we are going to delve into the vital link between wellness and high performance trading. We are thrilled to bring to you one of the world's leading practitioners in this field, Louisa Nicola. With Louisa, we are going to talk about how prioritising mental and physical wellness isn't just about self-care, but rather it's about gaining an edge in your trading, which in this highly competitive world can help give you a huge strategic advantage. Consider the importance for a trader of being in peak condition, mentally sharp, emotionally resilient, making well-informed, calculated decisions, more able to stay alert and on top of the market, less likely to get bullied by it, more cognitively flexible and attuned to the world around them. Trading is not just about charts, numbers and data. It's also about having a balanced mind, an effectively energized brain, and a body fuel to keep your vitality and alertness going for longer. Before we get into the podcast, long-term listeners to the Alpha Man podcast will be aware that we have a very highly valued partnership with the Society of Technical Analysts, who are a globally renowned education institution that has been at the forefront of helping traders, analysts and system developers hone their technical analysis skills for over half a century. Thanks to this collaboration, we are thrilled to extend an exclusive benefit to our listeners who can obtain a £100 discount or its equivalent in your local currency on their superb Technical Analyst Home Study course. This comprehensive course has an option for an internationally recognised diploma and has been created by some of the leading experts in the fields of technical analysis. The course is designed to profoundly enhance your skills and knowledge and delves into a wide array of price action techniques, methods and aspects. The knowledge can prove invaluable to traders, investors, analysts, quants and system developers, offering fresh perspectives for deciphering and interpreting price action, sentiment, liquidity and many of the aspects around those, including the underlying human behaviour which goes into these aspects. You can visit our website at alpha-mind.net and scroll down to the Society of Technical Analysts section to find a link with more detail how to take advantage of this offer. Now on with the podcast.
Well, Louisa, welcome to the show. And perhaps as a starting point, it'd be very interesting for us to hear just how you got into this particular field and perhaps just go back over your own journey as to what inspired you to get into this type of performance training and coaching and really why that's important for you and perhaps what the trigger moment was to get really, really serious about it.
First of all, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I love this world. So I was born and raised in Australia, and I started off my competitive edge, if you will, as a very competitive triathlete. I wanted to be, I was training in a team. We were training anywhere from 30 to 40 hours per week, and we all had a common goal. A lot of us were training for the elite titles to go to the Olympics and World Championship Series. I ended up qualifying and representing Australia for the World Championship Series in Auckland. I competed I qualified for Beijing, but I didn't get to go, which is, I think, what you were alluding to before offline in terms of trauma. Around 3 weeks prior to going to Beijing, I was actually hit by a car, and I had to strip away that title, and, I had to forfeit the title and go through a lot of rehabilitation. And it was during that time, triathlons, you're swimming, you're cycling, you're running, you have to become an elite at 3 sports, which is really enduring in itself. You learn so much about yourself. I always say that triathlon built me, to where I am today. you learn how to endure the hard times. You learn what endurance training is. You learn how to be part of a team. You learn how to take instruction from your coach. But I think the real magic came was when I did get hit by a car, and I was, I snapped a few bones. I had to go through multiple surgeries, and I actually requalified the year after getting hit. And that was after being told several times that I'm never going to compete again. And I had to work twice as hard, I would say. But I got myself up and raced and finished. And then I called it quits in 2012. I had already gained an undergraduate degree at that time. And I then went on to do a postgraduate degree in mathematics, and then went on to study medicine. And it was during that time that I kept questioning myself, oh, this is what the brain is. Oh, this is the nervous system. Oh, this is what sleep is. How come I wasn't being told this when I was training as an athlete? My coach never brought up, and this is mainly because, he was an amazing coach. He never brought up the likes of the importance of sleep, the importance of nutrients, micronutrients, what exercise does for the brain, and recovery methods. We never really spoke about that. And it wasn't until I was really working in a hospital setting where I was responsible for doing these brain scans. They're called EEGs. It's an electroencephalogram, and we usually do these scans on people who have had a seizure or epilepsy because it picks up on the functioning of the brain. And I kept questioning. I'm like, how come we can assess these types of individuals with dysfunctions in the brain, but we can't assess individuals who are performing at their peak and maybe get them to be better? And so that was back in, I would say, 2015. And so that's when I started to combine elite performance with neurology, because I knew there was something there and I just had to research a bit more.
Great. And on your journey, did you find a different level of acceptance from males and females as to whether of them embracing this type of adjustment to their performance?
Look, back in 2015, nobody was talking about the brain. I was actually living in Australia, and I love Australia so much. I think we're about 10 years behind the American market when it comes to science and human performance. Maybe that's just because of the population. But look, nobody took a liking to it. Nobody really understood what I was talking about. I went on record back in 2015 saying that in the future, organizations, hedge funds, major financial institutions will have people going in as performance coaches to help better the performance of their employees. I went on record saying that NBA players are going to be having a board of directors, somebody in charge of their cardiovascular system, somebody in charge of their sleep, somebody in charge of their brain. I went on record to say that, and people thought I was ridiculous. And look, long behold, in 2023, we now have performance coaches in some of the biggest hedge funds. I'm one of them. I serve many hedge funds here in New York City. I know many financial institutions have in-house performance coaches. I work personally with these elite athletes, and I have to say that I think I was a bit too far ahead of the market back then.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you're seeing the, I guess, similarities in terms of the impact of stress, trauma, and performance on people in the financial market as much the same way that you'd have seen it in sports.
Yeah, look, what I'm seeing a lot of, I wouldn't say too much trauma, as that's not my field. What I see a lot of is my primary role now. I have a 10-person team. Neuroathletics is my company. We do various things from personal one-on-one coaching, and then we also have, we serve these major hedge funds. We work with a lot of portfolio managers, and what I'm seeing across the board is dysfunctions. Okay, when I say dysfunctions, I'm not talking disease states and pathology. I'm talking, I've got, I can't tell you if any of them are not drinking. For example, I see widespread epidemic of alcohol intake, and this is more so to, I guess, dampen anxiety or dampen stress. And in turn, as a cycle, what alcohol does is, in the acute phase, it may dampen anxiety, it may dampen the stress, but it also kicks you out of sleep, which then rises your stress levels the next day. It's an ongoing cycle. So across the board, I'm seeing stress that affects many people, especially when it comes to decision making, thinking speed, information processing, and just being able to make sound, intelligent decisions. So I'm seeing it more as a physiological standpoint. We do everything at Neuroathletics, from we're doing blood biomarkers, like we're doing complete blood work analysis on everybody. We're doing brain scans. We're doing physiological testing like VO2 max. We're really big on exercise. So I'm seeing many areas of dysfunction there.
Thank you for bringing this up, and you've actually given me a chance to plug my book again. I've written a book called Mastering the Mental Game of Trading. It's going to be out on the 16th of January. But wow. One thing I talk about in the book, there's a section on developing your performance, using coaching to develop your performance, working with people to help improve the mental aspect of your game, the process aspect of the game, what I call developing your human potential. And I start with a quote from Dave Brailsford, who was the manager of the Team Sky Cycling back in the early 2000s, when British cycling just sort of grew up from nothing to take over the world, win multiple Olympic medals, Tour de France's. And there's a quote at the very beginning of it, which I've used, which is, you'll get more from a £900,000 rider with a coach than you'll get from £1 million rider without one. And that was the philosophy that Team Sky took when it came to hiring the best cyclists, but then also not necessarily paying top dollar, but getting a really good cyclist and then coaching them to the hilt. So hearing you talk about that is, this is where the finance industry is going now. And this is part of the work we're doing at Alpha Mind. We're going into, firms pretty much like you are, and we're working with people. We're probably working a little bit more on process and mindset. I should imagine you're coming at it from this kind of neuropsychological angle. We've seen some huge performance improvements, not just in our work, but in the work that other traders are doing on this sort of neuropsychological angle. One individual who was featured in the recent Market Wizards book, who I've worked with, he manages every part of his world, from his sleep patterns to how much time he spends in front of the computer to, I think he does cryotherapy once a week, which is to help
he doing well?
The guy is hitting the ball out of the park every single year. Phenomenal trader, but he sees it as just part of what he does. It's just part of his game. And I know you've, as we talk, you people can't see it obviously, but you've got an ice bath behind you. So, that's all part of this, isn't it? Recovery, sort of the mind being more alert, getting more out of the mind, because the mind can only work for so long and be effective for so long.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is you've got a reserve every day. Let's just say you wake up, okay, and let's just say your brain has a fuel tank, right? And if you are filling that fuel tank with premium oil, right, or premium fuel, whatever you call it, and you're filling it with the cheap fuel. If you're filling it with the nice fuel, that means that it's going to take less effort to produce simple tasks such as thinking, replying to emails, talking to your staff members, making these big trading decisions. These take a lot of energy from your brain. But if you've got a well-oiled machine, it's not going to cost you that much in fuel. And the way that you get a well-oiled machine is there's around 12 different things, in my opinion, that you can be doing. But without a doubt, there's 3 that are at the forefront of all of these other things, which are accessories. You mentioned my ice bath. That is an accessory. That is the cherry on top. That is the icing. It is not the cake, and it is not at the bottom of the pyramid. The things that are at the bottom of the pyramid are exercise, sleep, and nutrition. If you are not exercising adequately, and we can talk about what that means, and you are not sleeping well, let's just take those two. No amount of ice baths or cryotherapy is going to help you. No amount of supplements are going to help you. You can't out-supplement your way through bad sleep. So you need those two. They are the foundation to having the proper fuel in the bank. And if you get those right, that then gives you a seat at the table. That then gives you the ability to just be a normal functioning human in 2023. Look, I live in Manhattan. You need so much fuel to live in this city. It is just unbelievable how much energy you need. But if I can get my sleep, my exercise down pat, if I then can figure out what am I deficient in, you can get a blood test. Everyone can get a blood test. You can figure out just minor deficiencies. Maybe you've got a vitamin D deficiency. Maybe you've got a zinc deficiency. Just correcting for those can get you a seat at the table. You've got a seat at the table now. Now, how do we perform better and increase our peak physiological potential? That's when you start including your ice baths. You may include other supplements that can help enhance brain function. You can start including meditation. So these things have to be spoken about. I don't want people to think, oh, okay, I'm going to take this supplement because I heard it's good for my brain. It's going to make me a better trader. It just doesn't work like that.
It's interesting. I was coaching a bunch of youngsters in an energy trading firm in London, and I sort of started off with a sort of understanding how they lived their day, and barely any of them were having breakfast. Barely any of them. They would not focus on hydration. They would tend to go straight into multiple coffees. Some might remember lunch, okay, and they'd grab a quick snack, but generally a fast food snack. It was then ending their day and then just going straight to the gym, and at around about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, grabbing something for dinner, gaming on something for a while, going to bed, waking up, doing it again. And in the course of the conversations, they kind of looked exhausted, but they were sort of but when you started to talk through that, well, if you're not putting any energy into your system, you'll start every day of the week, you're going to start at a lower level of battery with that type of profile. And actually they were keeping going by having the energy drinks or coffee throughout the day. And of course, they were wondering why they were getting stressed and staying stressed. And of course, some of them were calling upon coffee sort of 7 times a day, and so the accumulation of caffeine became a problem too. And then it was a case of, well, what was sleep like? And sleep was patchy. It wasn't high quality for many of these. And this was a very familiar story, particularly with the sort of the Gen Zs type, the people between sort of 19 and 24, 25. This was their typical day, but they were in a performance environment and wondering why things were difficult. And actually, I had someone ping me something on LinkedIn saying he'd listened back to one of our previous podcasts. What I've done is I just stopped drinking coffee. And I'm hydrating as the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, and I'm actually having a proper breakfast. And actually, net result is I'm now trading a lot better. I'm trading a lot better because
if only everyone else knew that.
Yeah, those physiological things, all he did. He didn't learn how to trade better. He just changed the way he was managing himself at a core level of being. And that was his starting point. I think, as you say, that's sort of, getting your seat at the table actually had a big impact on just getting those things right for him. But yeah, it's a story that's out there that you got to feed this thing. Is what 20-25% of the body's energy on a daily basis is used by what's up top.
Correct.
And if you're coming with a flat battery, I always like the idea of a phone battery. You see, like when you see a phone battery, it's got those blue blocks.
Yeah.
People come in with like 10% and wondering why they're not performing. And they're more worried about that if their phone showed 10%, they'd do something about it. Yeah. But if they were measuring themselves and thinking, I've just got 10% energy, well, hello, do something about it. But they're not. They're just going into that day. And, you know, and I think working under pressure with that level of potential exhaustion is a recipe for stress in itself, because of the frustration that comes with it, and the inability to just you know, see clarity and see ideas and stay focused. Yeah, so
yeah, you also mentioned the age group. You said 19 to 25, is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
Two good things about this. Well, a good and bad. We know that the brain doesn't fully develop to around 25 years old. So what I can say is this. I study right now. I'm running a review paper that we published early next year on the effects of resistance training on cognitive decline and dementia. So I study dementia a lot and Alzheimer's disease. And what we know about these neurodegenerative diseases is it's an accumulation over, you know, of bad habits, if you will, over a long period of time. It's not something that you get diagnosed in your 70s. Okay. It takes a long time. It starts in your 30s, in your 40s, and in your 50s. And what I tell a lot of people is, if you can get the systems and habits down packed in your 20s, that's when you develop them. Okay. By the time you're 25, 30, it's very hard to change your habits, right? It's even harder to change them at 50 and 60. Let me tell you, I see it. But if you can get these good habits down packed now in your 20s, you're going to thank yourself in your 30s, because other things start to take place in your 20s, especially at 19. Oh, I remember back then it was what a great time. You didn't have to really think about too much, right? And probably not a lot of people are married with kids and mortgages. It just starts weighing on you even more and even more. And the fact that we get a massive decline in our health and our age begins to deteriorate at age 30, we actually start losing brain cells at age 30. It's just due to the natural brain aging process. You want to make sure that you've got, the last thing you want to do when you've got all of these other things happening, maybe businesses and kids, the last thing you want to do is then learn how to sleep well, and then learn how to exercise, and then learn how to drink water, like really basic, primitive activities. So I think that for these people, yes, you get the leeway of the fact that you are young. I don't drink anymore, just, purely because it doesn't help you with performance in any way, and it's just so bad for you. But I remember being 19 years old, I went to a party. It was a Halloween party. I didn't want to miss it. All my friends were going, but I knew I had to race the next day. It was a big race for me as well. I was so torn. But the race didn't start till 3 p.m., which is very unlike triathlons. But I raced at 3 p.m. I ended up coming second. But I had drunk a lot the night before. I got in a lot of trouble from my coach. And I think to myself, my God, I can't do that now. Just one glass of wine sends me crazy. Like, it has me like hungover for about a week. So things can happen in your 20s, but not necessarily, you won't be able to recover at that rate in your 30s and 40s.
I sort of hearing you say that, I always remember hearing a story with a particular trader, and he was telling me of a time he went on a stag weekend, and he wasn't a big drinker, but it was a lads weekend in the south of Spain, and he reckons that cost him $500,000 the next week.
What?
Yeah. Wow. He said lost opportunities,
yep,
bad decisions, bad choices in the market. And he sat down and he said, he reviewed everything he did, and he said, between the lost opportunities and the bad choices and decisions where he lost money, he thinks that it took him a week to get that alcohol out of his system and for him to be cognizant, because he's a really high performer, fast trader, has to be at the gate, ready for it like that. So, he used that as, kind of like when we did that, he was like, wow, that was a really expensive weekend.
Yeah. You have to weigh up your options as well. Is that, what's it costing you to go out and drink?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's a bigger story as well, isn't there, Steve? Because, I found out the number's even bigger than the 15 I mentioned before, but I know at least 15 people under the age of 55 that have died early. Because of the getting too involved in perhaps the negative aspects of the culture can bring on, particularly late nights, alcohol, super rich meals being eaten at the wrong time of the day. And I thought that was a story for the UK, and we were speaking to a futures trader out of Chicago, and without prompting, he said, "Yeah, I have about 20 buddies that are no longer here because of the way they dealt or didn't deal with the pressure and the challenges of the space." So yeah, we talk about drinking, but actually, there's some people it's more than just money they've lost. Because with that comes time. I think that's Louisa, that we often talk about what the value is in what we're doing in terms of performance, but actually we have to also value time as a critical component too, because if we don't feel we have time to live because we're so sucked into having to perform, then we might get a problem with that, because there needs to be some degree of balance,
Yeah, and I see that often. We've got people who, so basically the life cycle that I'm seeing is market opens at 8 a.m. So most of them, they're in the office at, let's just say, 6:37, which is screamingly early. That means you're going to have to get up at maybe 5:30. So up in the office, working indoors, so not seeing sunlight is another huge thing. We should be getting at least 3 hours a day of natural sunlight, just for circadian reset, for the health of our entire brain and eyesight and body. And also it helps you with sleep, because that's what makes you tired. It can help you with sleep along with exercise. So you're going to work, trading, high stress, probably not drinking, few coffees. Moment the market closes at 4 p.m., they're off with their buddies drinking. And then it's around, let's just say 4:30, 6 beers, maybe 6, 7 drinks. From there, go straight home. A lot of them, wife, kids, dealing with that, putting them to bed, doing all the things, and then getting back onto the computer, maybe working until midnight, 1 a.m., getting up and redoing it again. And again, it's maybe all well and good in your early 20s, but this starts to weigh on you. And what we see, even from a neurodegenerative standpoint, is compound interest. Albert Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. And I look at that and I think, yes, it can be good and it can be bad. And it works not just in finance, but in also physiology. If you have one night of bad sleep, you can probably get away with it. 2 nights, sure. But when you have these ongoing sleep-deprived nights, day in and day out for years, we see it as pathology. 20 years later, it really shows. It shows in your physiological health, it shows in your brain health. We even start to accumulate these plaques, which eventually cause Alzheimer's disease, because you're not sleeping. Sleep is where you literally wash your brain out. We have a system called the glymphatic system. It gets activated during deep, slow wave sleep. It's the third stage of sleep. We should be getting at least 30 to 40% of total sleep time in deep sleep. If we're not doing that, you're not activating the glymphatic system. The glymphatic system serves as like a washing machine or sewage system for your brain. If you're not doing that, you're not clearing the debris, you're not clearing the toxins, and then you wake up, you feel like crap. Most people think, I've got brain fog, I don't have clarity. It's because you didn't clean your brain out the night before. That's really what that is. And for the people listening, I don't work for any anti-alcohol companies, but what I can say is that when you're hungover, that is an actual poisoned induced state. That's what a hangover really is. So you've also, I'll just finish this sentence by saying alcohol is also affecting your sleep because it doesn't allow you to get into deep sleep. So again, with the cycle.
We're going to return to the podcast in a moment. Just a reminder that the F-Man podcast is sponsored by the Society of Technical Analysts, the STA, and they do provide an outstanding home study course for those keen to really up their education around technical analysis and price action techniques. They are one of the world's leading bodies in this field and have been going for more than 5 decades. The course is outstanding. It's, well, to give you a sense, they are a not-for-profit body. So any income that they make goes back into providing services for their members. And that should give you a sense that this is a real technical analysis course. Also, just a quick reminder about Alpha Mind. We do provide high performance coaching services and workshops to individuals and businesses. Do also feel free to check us out. And finally, I have a book coming out in January called Mastering the Mental Game of Trading. The book will be released on the 16th of January and will be available from all online bookshops, both in Audible and Kindle versions, as well as paperback. And now that's it, and let's just return to the podcast. I wanted to ask you a question because you've given us so many great reasons why you should be attending to these matters. You've got an audience here of thousands of traders who are listening to this podcast, and and people sort of connected to them, people in big businesses, running businesses. I'd love if you could design a perfect day for these people, a perfect routine, a perfect regimen in terms of this stuff. Okay. And I know it's difficult because, we're talking different age groups, different priorities, but what would a generic one look like? Not just on the day, but say over a week, over a month.
Yeah.
Maybe, that starts to fill out that foundation rather than the icing on the cake.
Yeah. Let's fill the foundation. First and foremost, what every single person should be doing is getting a thorough blood test. I can't stress that enough. You should be getting them every 6 months. Why? Because it's going to reveal some deficiencies and it's going to benchmark you. Everyone listening, if you're in finance, you know what benchmarking is. It will benchmark you. It will tell you where you are, what is happening in your body. You can take the lid off and look under the hood. That's the first thing we need to do. Second thing is you really need somebody who knows their stuff to give you, I wouldn't say diagnosis, but to really look at your blood work and be able to give you an analysis of that. Unfortunately, physicians are just not able to do that just due to time, etc. So you need to find somebody who's really well versed in blood work and then go from there. Second thing is, let's just say you've gotten the blood work. What do we do next? I would first start with what you can work with, and they're the free things, right? You have to sleep. So we spend a third of our lives sleeping. If you can get into a habit of sleeping good regularly, and that means 80% of the time, because I understand we're humans, we're not robots, you're going to start to see a really big change in your mood and your cognitive performance, right? How do we start sleeping well? Well, think about it like this. The perfect times to sleep, as per neuroathletics, is 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. That gives you a good 8 hours. As humans, we need 7 hours of sleep per night. I'll say that again. We need 7 hours of sleep per night minimum. If you're getting 7.5, even better. You should aim to sleep at the same time every night and wake up at the same time every day. You should aim to have a really hygienic sleep environment, which consists of blackout curtains, maybe sleeping in a cool room, because we know that in order to fall asleep and stay asleep, your core body temperature needs to drop at least 2 degrees. We want to keep sleeping really, really fresh, really hygienic, and we want to be good at it. Developing a sleep fitness protocol would be the start. Second from there, and another thing I can't stress enough, exercise will be the biggest performance enhancer you ever take. Exercise serves as medicine. Exercise serves as the best performance enhancing drug on the market. If pharmaceutical companies could bottle up what exercise does, they would be making billions. And let me tell you, they're trying, but we just can't. So you've got two main forms of exercise. You've got aerobic, which is also dubbed as cardiovascular training, where you're using, you're training for around an hour at a time. This not only exerts beneficial effects on the cardiovascular system, but also the brain. We know this because during long bouts of exercise, you release these growth factors for the brain. The most famous one is BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor. This is going to help you build a better brain. In fact, we now have human controlled studies and research to show that BDNF can grow and proliferate new neurons in the hippocampus of the brain. So you have to, guys, the CDC recommends 150 minutes to 300 minutes per week of aerobic exercise, only 24% of US adults are meeting that criteria. So that is 100. Now, I'm actually trying to advocate for a higher recommended dose consisting of at least 300 minutes to 450 minutes per week. But that's just cardio, that's just maintenance phase, right? You also need to be doing resistance training. And this is what I can tell you all as a hack. I don't like that word, but you can get enormous benefits from doing just 5 minutes of rigorous activity. I'm talking like where you are shunting all this blood throughout your body and brain, where you're like having trouble breathing. You're in the death zone, I call it. You can get enormous benefits by just doing 5 minutes a day of that. 5 minutes. If you can't dedicate 5 minutes to the health of your body and your system, like I've got to tell you, maybe like you need to see somebody, because that's like unimaginable. If you can't spend 5 minutes just doing that, then I don't think I can help you. So spending at least, 20 minutes per week doing rigorous physical activity will help you. And then once you've got that, you want to plug the holes. I say this is at the top of the pyramid, which is have a look at your blood work. If the blood work states that you are deficient in X, Y, and Z, you want to go and take a supplement for X, Y, and Z. You want to fill the holes. We have seen in our practice, we have seen enormous benefits. Okay, I'm talking like huge strides with people just supplementing with zinc because they had a zinc deficiency. We see people with, we've seen women who are like, I'm struggling to lose weight. I'm eating hardly anything, but the fat is not going. And then we get their blood work back and we realize, hey, you're low in iron. And iron, we need you need the presence of heme and oxygen in order to actually burn fat. So then we can supplement them with iron. Then they can even up their calories by even 1,000 and still lose fat. So that's what you have to do. You have to get those 3 things in place, and then you can do a cold shower every day. That's a really great way to get started. 2-minute cold shower every morning to wake up the nervous system. I'm going to leave it there and let you guys talk.
Thank you. You had me until you said the cold shower.
Yeah.
I get what you're talking about. I mean, that's brilliant. And you know what? We don't think about that. I mean, I got into a routine when I was trading of running, going for a run late morning, round, somewhere near our trade where I worked, and it was incredible. Once I remember a trading idea just popping up in my head, and I actually have had that a few times because your head just clears, all the rubbish, just sort of evaporates, and it's almost like you're in a meditation zone a lot of the time when you're doing that, which is I know meditation is a huge thing as well that a lot of really successful traders practice. I mean, that I guess is the next level. If we've got the foundation, what is that next level before we get to this sort of icing?
Well, the next level would be the icing on the cake. It would be saunas, including, sauna therapy at least twice a week if you can and you've got the means to do it. We mentioned earlier, I've got an ice bath. I get into the ice bath at least, I would say, 6 days a week. And I'm getting in for a protocol of 3 minutes at 43 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can do the change to Celsius. I'm taking various supplements to A, help with cognitive performance, B, to plug my holes, and C, to manage my stress. I'm taking rhodiola, for example, which is an adaptogen. So if my cortisol is high during the day, it adapts to it and it brings it down. So it helps me. It's there's great studies on rhodiola. And then I actually have this new thing where I put my phone in like a secure place and I'm not allowed to touch it for if I'm doing deep work for like 2 hours at a time. If it's just on my desk, I'm like touching it for some reason. Yeah.
Yeah, the dreaded phone, the dreaded social media as well. I think so many electronic thoughts. Mark, can I bring you in here maybe just sort of What are you thinking about some of what?
Yeah, I guess dig a bit deeper into the value of meditation in terms of either connecting with nature type meditation, where you get out in fresh air and you guess wherever you are, you're there, as opposed to being stuck in thoughts, and really is to the short practices of breath work and things like that, which I'm sure you've also come across it in your journeys. There's really just emphasizing the benefit of that, of paying attention to yourself. We often in some of our work, we talk about we're very bothered to ask other people, how are you? But we very infrequently turn that question around to ourselves and ask ourselves, how am I? And paying attention to these little moments of stillness, where seemingly so invaluable, yet actually really, really valuable in terms of the process of doing something small but doing it often, as opposed to going in large. And and I'm just really talking about that from your perspective of what you've seen as the benefit of paying attention to that side of ourselves.
Yeah, small increments is what I mentioned with compound interest, and getting time to sit with yourself is something that, I'll be honest, is really hard for me to do. I actually did a meditation course just to become better at it. And if you can do this, even if it's for 5 minutes a day, then that's great. But I'm more interested in breath work, filling your brain with oxygen, which, depending on how you sleep, some of us are having little apneas throughout the night. Maybe you're not getting enough oxygen to the brain. But even spending time really delivering that oxygen to your brain is so beneficial. It also activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. It basically tells our brain, let's come back down, let's just calm down and relax. That's also good for you, which is going to make you be able to think clearer and decide what you want to do. I always use the word decide intelligently, because we can all make decisions, but is it the most intelligent decision? That takes a lot of effort. So you kind of reset the system through meditation and breath work.
Yeah, I think the way that we can reset, refresh, and recalibrate is a series of R's that we like to use for this method of using pause in a very productive sort of way to drive, because it powers the performance.
Yes.
These little micro breaks are part of the powering process of maintaining a level of performance that's not compromised by doing too much of it.
Correct.
Without some personal reflection. And of course, it helps significantly the winding down process that's required very often for dividing the working day into the winding down into sleep part of your day. And as you mentioned, very often it's a very muddy area where the working day almost stops at the point where someone's going to bed, and then wondering why they can't, wind down to go to sleep. So yeah, the benefits of it cannot be understated for sure. Stephen.
Yeah, I got a question, and it's a thought, really, which I suppose goes back to partly when I was a trader, and partly because of some of the challenges I meet as a coach. So when I got into a hole as a trader, and would go into this kind of spiral and dark place, when I needed to do what I needed to do to get out of it, which was sort of stuff you're talking about, I actually found myself doing it less and spending more time in front of the screen. It's something I see with a lot of clients, getting trapped into that and losing the good habits and getting into a bad habit. Do you meet that resistance sometimes? Do you work with a lot of people in hedge funds. They've got the best of intentions, but they're like, I just need to see the data, watch the market. I could do that later on. The procrastination. Yeah, I know it's good for me, but I'll do it next week. I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah. And I was a serial procrastinator as a trader, And I honestly believe that cost me a lot of money, but you don't see it in the moment.
In what aspect do you think? What were you procrastinating on?
I was procrastinating on, I would get into spirals into, I've got to watch the market. I've got to try harder. I got to do more of the technical stuff. And, if I watch the screen more, if I spend more time at the screen, I'll see more opportunities. And then, you get yourself into these bad habits. And then they can just go on for days, weeks, and months. And
I think you've got to make the decision of, it's like, I don't know, like I have to go to Vegas a lot, right? Every time I go to Vegas, I'm like, I'm never coming back here again. I have to go there in 2 weeks. And it's going to be the 5th time that I say that I'm never going back. But, I see, I see people just sitting. I remember seeing this one guy. I was going to bed and he was at the blackjack table. And then I saw him when I woke up. He was still in the same table. And I was thinking, oh my God. And the psyche of that is, if I leave, I'm going to lose out. Okay. And you have to get comfortable. And this comes down to self-confidence as well, and awareness. If you are staring at your screen and you think that that's the most important thing, you actually doubt yourself, because you think, if I leave, I'm going to miss a trade. And then just say you do, you have to be comfortable with that. You actually have to be comfortable. This is also whether making a trade or not. We teach that you have to be, and if you lose it, you have to be okay with that. And you have to accept it. The best traders I've seen and not where they are because they just keep making money and they're brilliant. That's one aspect, but they're also okay with the losses, and they deal with it psychologically and emotionally and intelligently. They're like, that was a loss. This is what went wrong. This is how I perceived it. Great. Move on. That's how you have to be. This is how I see the best people in sport moving on as well. So if you are procrastinating on these bad habits, you have to ask yourself why. Why do you doubt yourself? Why do you doubt that you're not going to make a comeback?
Yeah. It's what we call the letting go part of the challenge. It's the hardest part. It's the part that sounds so easy, but it's what separates, the superstars from everyone else, and it's that bit. I mean, the one thing I do tell myself, or I tell other people, and I used to tell myself, is this is what the market wants me to do.
Yes,
because it wants me to act in this way. It doesn't want me to exercise. It wants me to drink lots of coffee. It wants me to sleep badly. It wants me to drink alcohol.
That's what Instagram wants us to do.
It's absolutely, because if I do it, then I don't win. And if I don't win, other people win more. And that's just everyone else. So it's that. And this is the one thing you can sometimes say, like, okay, let's turn it around. What do you need to do to win? And this sort of stuff you're talking about, that foundation, it's a big thing. People don't think about it, but it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So, Louisa, where can people find out more about you and your work?
You can go to neuroathletics.com.au. We've got everything on there. We have a really well-performing podcast if you want to learn about these performance habits and the medicine and scientific practices that you need to perform at your peak. It's called The Neuro Experience. I also hang out on Instagram a lot at Louisa Nicola.
Okay, brilliant. And what we'll do is we'll put all those contact details on the notes for this episode, so we'll make sure that that's all on there as well.
I would love that.
Mark.
Yeah, it's fascinating chat. I mean, it's the intelligent decision making about just looking after yourself, never mind the decisions you're making in the complexities of the unpredictable marketplace. So obvious, really, but we forget the obvious, don't we, in our complex world, because we're busy doing stuff. But I think, the circadian rhythm thing about connecting with sunlight really is such an important thing about our body, is understanding where it is on the planet, because that's linked to that process of what light does to you. And I was speaking to someone quite recently about and where they lived in London, they moved to a place that now they're very overlooked and they can't see the horizon. And they're getting quite depressed about the fact that they lived in a place before that they could see sky and the horizon and the sunset. And their mood has changed dramatically because of the fact they just can't see the sky. And I think it's almost obvious, right? You look at these things and of course, if you don't drink enough water and hydrate because you're 90% water or whatever the number is, if you're not drinking water, you've got a problem. If you're not sleeping, you've got a problem. If you're not sleeping properly, you've got a problem.
Yes.
If you're not eating the right stuff, you've got a problem as a human. And actually, we all know that we have deficiencies, whatever. We'll find out what they are because it's, I guess, relatively easy to do something about it. And it could make the world of a difference in terms of how you're managing your energy profile through the day and throughout the week. And that's energy that makes you available for the job that you do, but also for doing the stuff that isn't job, the play aspect of your life, and having the energy to be bothered to go out and play and having these sort of non-work conversations and being in the right state to pay attention to somebody if they're talking to you rather than just being exhausted. Those things are the joys of life. And actually what you've brought about to us today is just a reminder of how important paying attention to the simple, relevant stuff is about your physiology and about your mental state as part of that is actually this very important foundation that the high performers do. So there are some messages there about, as you say, setting the foundation early on and investing in yourself in those sort of pre-25-year-old years where you just get the right habits in place, because actually if you don't get them right, they become very difficult to let go of as you go through life. But they can have a profound impact on your state when you get into the 50s and 60s.
Thank you. And I'm so happy that we've connected.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Have a great rest of the day.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to the Alpha Man podcast today. We also want to extend a thank you to our podcast sponsor, the Society of Technical Analysts. Do check out their brilliant home study course, and you can see more about that at our website, alpha-mind.net. And of course, if you're keen to know more about how Alpha Mind can help you, please do also look up further details of our services on our website, or reach out to us at info@alpha-mind.net. That just leaves us to say thank you, and we wish you the best of luck in the weeks ahead.